Good afternoon, everyone. We are so happy to have you here. I'm Martha Joseph. I work at Ability Central, and I have the privilege of being your moderator today. This session, Level Up with AI, Exploring AI for Work and Everyday Life, is the first workshop of the Project Level Up initiative. And before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to thank the sponsor of Project Level Up, the Mitsubishi Electric America Foundation. Thank you for making this program possible and for being such a long-standing pillar of support for the disability community. Now to share a few quick housekeeping notes to make sure you feel supported through the session. ASL interpreters and speakers are going to be pinned on the screen so they stay visible. Captions are available, so just click the CC button in Zoom. You can adjust the font size and caption settings. If you'd like translation or multilingual captioning, use the QR code or the link that we're going to share in the chat. To ensure comfort for our participants using AAC devices, we have disabled the chat. We also want to encourage you throughout the session to please use Zoom reaction buttons as a way to share energy with the group and let us know what's resonating with you. And with that, let's get started. Please join me in welcoming today's speaker, Chris McKewon, owner and founder of Exceptional, an IT support firm focused on supporting individuals and nonprofits with their tech needs.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
To kick us off, Chris, what exactly is AI? How would you explain it to someone who is completely new to it?
Well, very broadly, AI is a tool that allows us to interact with computers in natural language format. So, chatbots, conversational interactions versus writing program code.
What are some examples of AI that people already use?
AI is actually prevalent, in our day-to-day lives today. So things like our virtual backgrounds today, that's a artificial intelligence engine that screens out the background of our video feeds and replaces it with colored backgrounds you can see here. Video assistants, so speech transcription or speech recognition are in some form or fashion artificial intelligence. Video captions, so taking speech from meetings or phone calls and or television productions or movies, etc., and captioning them. Oftentimes in previous days was human typed and captions, but today is mostly artificial intelligence. Social media recommendations, so algorithms that push content to you based on your interests and previous clicks. Search engines, a lot of search engines today are providing an AI-aided answer first and foremost versus just straight search. Noise cancellation is a great example of that. How many of us have done web conferences and had very loud noises in the room or around us? And thankfully, with using noise cancellation technology, a lot of that noise doesn't make it through my microphone and cloud what would ordinarily be clear speech. And customer service chatbots, we'll talk a little bit more about this in subsequent slides, but essentially interacting with software, robots, I like to call them, or computer systems in a natural language form, automating customer service for individuals. Spam filters is another good example of email capabilities, email security capabilities that look for bad actors in email and screen them out or mark them as suspicious. And lastly, photo editing or automatic photo generation, things like that, of removing red eyes from photographs is a good example of artificial intelligence, or in image enhancement, all kind of draw their roots upon the origins of artificial intelligence.
Those are awesome examples, and I actually found myself thinking about them as you were talking. Like, I click on one video on YouTube, and then I just get so many recommendations of those kind of videos for like the next month. Or if I go into Google and I type in something, instead of seeing the links now on the bottom, it just gives me a summary at the top. And
You can actually ask it a question, right? You can ask it, how do
yeah,
I do
yeah.
X? And it will give you an AI generated answer.
Yeah, I actually find that really, really helpful because sometimes I don't know the exact terms I want to search for, but I know the question I want an answer to. So it's been really
Sure.
helpful.
Sure.
The other thing I use it for, like you said, photo editing. I like to make really silly photos of my cats. And so AI software has been really good for that. And I'm sure people use it for their Instagram and things like that. So these are all fantastic and a really great way to show us that we're already using this all the time, whether we know it or not. Thank you again for those examples, Chris. Super helpful.
Of course.
Really fun question. I would like to talk to you a bit about how AI is helping make everyday life easier, especially for people with disabilities. Can you share a few practical examples?
Sure. Yeah. AI is often used in various ways, but a few examples here on this slide. Learning, simplifying information, synthesizing data, AI is very good at. So, taking a document or a spreadsheet or notes from a meeting or something like that and asking it to summarize or synthesize the information in a meaningful way, maybe capturing action items, etc. That's a great use case. Communication, so help with drafting emails, creating documents, changing tone of existing document, branding of a document. All those are great ways to use AI to communicate. Staying organized, so using AI to break down your calendar, suggest ways to prepare for meetings, creating checklists and reminders, or personalized routines and support strategies, right? AI is really good at considering factors you may not have considered and bringing those factors into you when you ask it questions with properly crafted prompts. I think we'll talk a little bit about later. In
Yeah.
everyday life, planning your meals, shopping, errands, using it to shop for products and compare services, or making travel plans and finding travel reviews, right? Use it as you can use it as your own personal travel agent, right?
Yeah, I actually I went on a day trip to where was it? This little city that's supposed to look very Danish, and I didn't really know what to look at or what to eat, and so I asked it for recommendations, and it actually did a research for me and gave me a list of places to make sure that I visited, got photos at, and it was a wonderful day.
That's
And
neat.
also, I'm someone that has like major executive dysfunction, ADHD, all day, every day. And it's been so helpful as a tool to help me break things down because I can get overwhelmed if something feels really,
I'm sure.
really big as a task. And so being able to put it in instead of a meal into bite-sized little snacks makes things so much nicer and makes me feel a little bit more regulated, which I think is just a wonderful way to feel. Yeah. And so we know all of these really great ways that we can use it. I wonder if we can talk a bit now. Uh, Tell me how it struggles. You know, we know what it does well, but what doesn't it do so well?
Well, it doesn't have any sort of personal context. So it doesn't know your story until you tell it your story, right? So training AI is incredibly important. Training AI and to tell it to give it the context clues to understand who you are, what your needs are, what your interests are, and so on and so forth. Giving it that over time, giving that training is incredibly important to getting more value out of it. It's not great with being 100% accurate. The term is hallucinations. It often, if it doesn't know facts, sometimes certain algorithms, AI or large language models will make stuff up, sometimes called hallucinations. All of our recommendations for a number of different contexts of AI usage call on users, prompters to check the work, validate that it's accurate. Oftentimes, the scope or the knowledge that a generative AI tool has is limited in its current information. Usually, they cut off any news or current events or documentation, etc., at a certain date. So if anything newer comes out, you may have to prompt it or remind it that there's newer information. It's a robot, right? It's a computer. It doesn't have emotions. It doesn't really understand human emotions, although it tries. Relying on it to sense your emotions, read your face, read your tone. It's not going to be great at that. And lastly, it does not replace human judgment. You as the user of this technology need to use your own judgment, apply your own morals and ethics to any decisions that you make that might be aided in AI. What it does do really well, moving to the left side of the screen there, brainstorming, summarizing, organizing, explaining, research, translating. So things that are repetitive tasks or worker tasks that you can just dispatch it to go do for you. With knowing the limitations, you'll get good results.
Awesome. So always double check, always make sure that you are giving it enough information about who you are while still making sure that you are keeping certain things to yourself. And we'll touch about
Hmm.
that in a little while.
Yeah.
We'll kind of get back to that. But we want to make sure that you have the clarity and understanding that AI is about finding patterns. It figures things out. It takes a lot of information that it's been given and it figures out so and so said this. And so the next thing from all of these other people who have said something similar, I think that the answer should be this. So always double check that because not everything fits into a little box for everyone. And so one answer for someone might not be the right answer for you.
Yeah, these models are improving daily. So, what you might understand its limitations to be 6 months ago, it's probably resolved a lot of those and has all new limitations. So these technologies evolve. It's just important that you have your principles and you kind of stick to them.
Yeah, that's really, really a great reminder. Is like as it changes and evolves, things will shift, but at its core, always hold on to your beliefs, your viewpoints, and don't be afraid
Mhm.
to challenge it, to find an answer that fits the need for the task.
Yeah, correct. Like Martha said, don't be scared to tell it it's wrong when it's wrong.
Yeah. Oh, that's the I wish I had said it that way. That's really good. So as we just kind of hinted at, AI is not always right. And sometimes that comes from some mistakes that we make as we're starting to get to know AI. So I'm wondering, Chris, if you can talk to us about mistakes beginners make when using AI.
Sure, and this will be drawn in the examples in forthcoming slides, but essentially, if you're too vague, if you don't give enough context, if you don't describe in detail what you need it to do, what will happen is your initial prompt will result in more questions and more prompts, and not only use more time of your time, but also use more of the resources that are being brought to bear to power and generate these responses. So being effective and accurate in your prompts first time will get you quicker results. Do not trust every answer, as we've talked about. AI is famous for hallucinations, so validate if the answer of the data they're providing doesn't look correct, challenge it, ask it to check yourself, and so on and so forth. Don't share personal information with a chatbot. Not a good idea. Medical, we'll talk a little bit more of this, but medical is a good example of that. You don't want to give it your medical records as an example. Never forget that AI can make mistakes. Now, if you give it on the right side of the slide, instead of making mistakes, if you give it proper context, oftentimes I'll use ordered lists when I'm prompting. I wanted you to do this, 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 and this, or consider this, consider that, consider this, or generate this, generate that, so on and so forth. So giving it lists, prompting it with more detail. When you get a response, ask it to follow up questions. For example, if you've sense it's hallucinating, ask it to double check itself. Double check for yourself is a great piece of advice. Protect your privacy, as we were saying before. Don't share privileged information, either your organization or employer's intellectual property, your own personal identifiable information, personal medical records, financial bank accounts, etc. Watch yourself when you share, but trust your judgment, right? If something doesn't feel right or look right or it gives you the uh-oh feeling, then challenge it, back away, try a different model, do something else.
Yeah, I really like that term, the uh-oh feeling. So
Mhm.
if you get the uh-oh feeling, take a second, step back. One tip that you gave me when we were preparing for this conversation was actually using other AI to check your answers from AI,
Sure,
because
sure.
each of them have different skill sets that they're better at than some other ones. And so they can go through and just ask them to say, can you confirm that all the information in this is
Hmm.
correct? But we can have a better prompt for that, of course, which we'll
Yep.
cover later. But little things like that can make it a lot easier to confirm things for yourself and to make sure that the information you're sharing with family, your community, or perhaps a future job are accurate and make you look better. Now that we've talked about some mistakes that people make on the regular, I'd love to offer a little tool that I think could be super helpful. It's called the CLEAR method, CLEAR. Start with C for context. An example is, I'm applying for a job at Old Navy. The next thing you would do is L, list your goals or objectives. I'd like help with writing a professional cover letter. You move on to the E then, which is to explain the details. You would say, this would be my first job. I volunteered at the ASPCA for 2 years. After you've given it the details, you can ask for tone and format. A, please keep it friendly and 1 page long. You've given it some parameters. And once it's giving you your first answer, you read it over, take a second, see how you feel about it, make sure that you refine. This response doesn't feel confident enough. Can you make it sound more confident? It will give you another version that has that friendliness and that confidence put together, and you can see if you like it. If not, keep doing the R. Refine, refine, refine till it does what you want it to do. How does that sound, Chris? That clear method.
Great. It sounds great. I love this model. I'm gonna borrow it. Um,
It is all yours for the taking. And it
uh,
wouldn't have happened without you sharing such incredible information.
well, I would just suggest that iteration is okay. Obviously, you can't get your prompt right completely. Usually, it's hard to get the result you're looking for on your first prompt. So the R, right? Don't be afraid to iterate and tell it to try again, adding these details. Give it notes as if you were talking to a friend who just drafted a document, right? Tell it
Mhm.
change this, move that, and let it do the changes for you. And in most of the cases, you'll find that it incorporates its tone, the flair, the aesthetic that you're looking for, rather than trying to do it yourself.
Yeah, I like to think of it as giving it 3 tries. Never take your first answer. Try and have 2 more turns with it till it feels
Mhm.
more like what you're hoping for. It feels more like you
Yeah,
and what you want to put out into the world.
great advice.
So now that we have this clear framework, I'd love to take a moment, Chris, and ask if you can walk us through a couple of examples so we can practice. Does that
Sure,
sound okay?
absolutely.
Awesome.
So, um, on the left, we have two examples here. On the left, you'll have a prompt that's too vague. On the right, you'll have one that's clear and produces a better initial response. So the prompt that's too vague, plan a trip for me. Okay. Now you'll see the response from in the mock-up from the AI, which says, I can help, but I have questions, right? So it's automatically telling you in response to a vague prompt, you didn't give me enough information, I need more, right? And if we swing over to the right side there, you'll see the prompt is plan a 5-day trip to Lisbon for 2 adults in mid-October, give it the budget, give it your likes and dislikes, and you ask for a day-to-day itinerary with restaurant picks. Well, that is a great prompt, right? It's got lots of details, specificity, interest, context. And so you can see that response is immediate. It's not asking follow-up questions. It's saying, here's what I would suggest. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and it estimates the total and it gives you some restaurant recommendations, exactly what you asked for and we're looking for.
That's fantastic. Now I want to go to Lisbon.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Here's another prompt that's more focused on work and delivering something for your boss.
Yeah, so this one you can see on the left there, the vague prompt says, write something for about my project for my boss. Okay. Well, the AI doesn't know what you're talking about, right? You need to tell it what you're talking about. What project? What boss? What's the audience? This and that and the other, right? And so again, if you prompt and it replies with questions, your prompt was too vague for it. So you can see in the clear prompt, it tells it the length of the response, the format that it wants it in, which is email, who specifically it's to, what project it's about. You give it a prompt for the tone, professional, concise. You want to include the August 15th go live when testing and so on and so forth. So it's giving it very summary level, but way more detail than our vague prompt. And again, the answer is not prompting with an answer or responding with an answer to your prompt, but rather responding with a result to your prompt because in this case, it has been more specific, more context, more relevance, and it's able to infer exactly what you need and produce a meaningful result.
Mhm. And one thing I'd actually love to note is that memory has gotten really good with AI. So the more that you use it, the more detail it's going to hold onto your account. So you'll be able to not have to give as much information over time the more that you use it, because it will say, all right, you've talked about this before. I remember that conversation we had, or that chat that we had. I'm going to use that information to help make my answer
Mhm.
better for you, to make it so you don't have to give me so much. And so you can use that space to add more things, ask for more, and get it more refined to be what you need.
Absolutely. That's part of the training exercise we talked about earlier.
Yeah. All right. So we've gone through a couple of prompts, one for planning a trip, personal life. You can use those for, of course, anything for your personal life, to get tips on how to plan recipes, tell it what you have in your fridge, give it some specifics. It'll give you an idea for a great meal. We figured out ways to make it more clear. So give the framework a try, see if it works for you, and refine until it meets your needs. The next thing, as we move on from prompting, is to talk a bit about what information you should avoid sharing with AI to protect your privacy. This is a very important topic, Chris, so please tell us what
Yeah.
not to do.
Well, we talked about this a little bit ago, but passwords shouldn't be shared. Social security numbers, that's would be considered personally identifiable information or PII. Private family information, so addresses, phone numbers. Be wary of sharing that with AI. Medical records, we talked a little bit about this. You don't really want to be sharing your personal medical information, health information with an AI chatbot. Banking information, we mentioned this before, not a good idea. And confidential workplace information. If you're in HR, you shouldn't really be sharing HR information or any other privileged information. Now, it's important to note on this slide, I think as we talk about this slide, that what you can share with a AI engine really kind of depends on your engagement model and the privacy agreement with the provider of that model. There are some instances where everything you prompt and that it results in is fed back into the model to train it. That's where I would exercise all of these cautions, right? Don't share any information if you're using what is usually considered a public AI or a free AI tool. As you start to engage with AI and pay for AI, you get some privacy policies that if you read thoroughly, you'll see it's not using your prompts and not using your response in some cases, or optionally, you're able to turn those things off. And that then you can have a little bit more confidence in sharing private information. But generalized guidelines when you're starting out, and especially on free tools, don't share any of these kinds of things and only share with caution if you have a for pay account and you have the privacy policies turned up high. So just kind of know that it's a spectrum. It's not one or the other. There's no rule, hard and fast rule. These are guidelines, especially as it pertains to the free public AI tools that are out there.
So just to reiterate, if you're using a free account, the reason not to give this information is because everything that goes is entered into a free account gets used to train the next model. So all that information is bundled up for people to potentially access. So you want to make sure that it's secure. But if you're using a paid account, there might be a little bit more safety there. But you also always want to kind of err on the side of caution. And it makes me think of this thing my mom used to tell me. It's never share anything that you wouldn't want on the front page of the New York Times. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, how many politicians and business people have been burned by that, right? Where they think email is a good example. Email is secure, email is not secure. Similarly, your prompts and your results, if you're using a public free tool, they're not secure, they're not private.
and something you kind of mentioned that I would love to follow up on because I think it's really important is somebody is able to use AI to help them fix their resume, get things going, and they're able to secure a job. And they use a tool. Let's say your favorite tool is ChatGPT, and you use it for a lot of things. It's become very important in helping you achieve things. And you start a new job, and they say, we do not allow ChatGPT. What's the term for that? I forgot what it was.
Well, that would be just general acceptable use, right?
That's it. It
So
was the acceptable use policy.
yes,
Thank you.
when employers, if they have a rigorous policy regime or employee handbook, oftentimes will have acceptable use policies, and these are meant to cover not just AI but email, internet usage, and so on and so forth. And they draw boundaries around what you can and can't do. AI acceptable use policies typically include what models are provided for or sanctioned by the employer and which aren't. And so, and what that has a lot to do with is just kind of the topic that we're discussing here. Organizations will provide AI solutions to employees, and ideally, they've turned the security settings up high enough that you can share some privileged information, but they don't want you then going outside of what they've given you to use as an employer and employee relationship and go outside of what they've granted you access to use and do the same kind of sharing of information. That usually is a no-no and can result in some cases disciplinary action. So you want to be careful when you're in an employment context that you play by the rules of your employer, especially as it pertains to your employer's business or organizational owned information.
Okay, that's super duper duper important. Thank you, Chris. Understand the boundaries, don't cross them, ask questions to make sure. And if something you feel is very important to you to be able to perform the duties in a way that helps you do more better, you can always try and ask for an accommodation. Explain the use case. They may say no, but at least you have a documentation. You have the documentation to show that you've made the request, and you can follow up on that with different people, HR, your boss, etc. So always
Absolutely.
remember, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Certainly ask
All
before
right.
you do.
Yes, there we go. Ask before you do. So that's really helpful to know as we know this conversation is about AI, how we can use it. I wonder if we can talk a bit about what does what best and who might it work best for.
Well, I'll start from the right there. Gemini. Gemini is a Google tool. It's included in a lot of Google Workspace accounts. And I think also Gemini is what's used when you use Google search to aid the AI-enabled search as well. Same principles apply though. If it's a paid account, you can have more leeway with regard to privacy and security versus a free. But its strength is well, it's got the Google powered development environment behind it. So anything in the Google Workspace, Docs, Gmail, Sheets, Slides, Gemini is pervasive throughout all those tools and integrates really nicely with those tools. So if you're in a Google Sheets and you want to add a slide, you can actually use Gemini to help you generate it. ChatGPT, the first kid on the block, really. OpenAI is the company behind ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a free tool, oftentimes used as a free tool for people. It also has for pay accounts. They also have a suite of tools that do a number of different things. But what ChatGPT itself is best for is just everyday tasks, brainstorming, creating workout plans, dinner plans, maybe helping you generate a resume, etc. ChatGPT is not associated with like Gemini is with a productivity suite, other than through Copilot, which we'll talk about, I think, on the next slide. But ChatGPT standalone is kind of good as a general tool. Claude, my personal favorite. Claude is super powerful. It's also like ChatGPT, not associated with any work productivity tool like Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, but it has connectors, plugins, and all kinds of things. It's best for reading, writing, and coding, which you notice coding isn't mentioned in either one of these two other options. Claude Code is actually a product set inside Claude, and it is very good at writing code in whatever format you want, interpreting code. If you're, again, paid account, security settings turned up high, you can share source code with it. I use it a lot in my day-to-day life. I've developed a set of skills inside of Claude so that it remembers. Goes back to training. Skills are kind of a way to encapsulate and share what I've trained Claude to do with other members of my team. We have a brand guidelines skill. We have a PowerPoint skill, we have a Word doc skill, we have a logo skill that all kind of conform to our brand blueprint, our brand guidelines, and provide consistency in the look and feel of the work product. So I'm not trying to sell you Claude here, but I really love working with it
I
and
do think
have
it's having a moment. I feel like I see it everywhere now, and people tell
yeah.
me how they use it for all kinds of things. It really is super helpful. But one thing I would like to note, one thing I've noticed in some of these is some of them have different, I guess the term is token limits. And I think that ChatGPT is good for everyday tasks because it has the most amount of tokens for free before you have to wait,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, that's true from what I understand. Claude also has, and I think ChatGPT and Gemini as well, have multiple different models, right? And some are more thirsty when it comes to the number of tokens or higher usage levels per prompt. And they also might take the higher level of the model, the more time it will take to generate a response, the more resources it will use, the more tokens it will burn. So just know that, for example, in Claude, they have Opus, Sonnet, Haiku, and Fable. Fable being the most expensive model, generates the most overhead, the most token usage. Obviously, those are typically available only in paid accounts. The free accounts are going to be those lesser models that don't use a lot of stuff. They just want you to get some experience using it before you pay for it.
That's a really, really helpful tip. So if you're doing a task that may not need the highest model, which uses the most tokens, maybe go for the last model. That way you can
Mhm.
have more engagement with it if you're using a free version of the tool. So you can
And
use it
faster
longer.
responses too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, faster responses too. Yeah. I think that's my big gripe with Claude is that sometimes it takes a long time and I am so impatient. You mentioned that we'll have some more, which we do. Let's talk a bit about these bad boys.
Sure. So I'm not all that familiar with Goblin tools and Notebook LM. I'll rely on you, Martha, for that. But Copilot, I'm very familiar with. Copilot is the Microsoft tool that you can purchase through Microsoft and or use for free through Microsoft that actually incorporates multiple models inside of it. So it actually uses Chat GPT and Claude models inside Copilot. And you can actually select inside Copilot which model that you want to use or prefer when you're prompting it. Otherwise, you can leave it to auto and it will decide what the best model is to use for you. So what's good about Copilot is if you're a Microsoft Productivity Suite user, you have a Microsoft 365 account, similar to Gemini, it fits really nicely with all of your Microsoft tools, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. Though you'll find Copilot icons inside all of those applications, either the desktop applications or the web versions. It will remember your prompts across all those tools and be able to access files in your SharePoint or OneDrive folders and access your email inside your Exchange mailbox. So Copilot is powerful in that it draws upon Claude and ChatGPT tools, models, excuse me, and it integrates seamlessly with all the Microsoft ecosystem of tools.
And just to tell you too, I found that I'm still able to create Excels and Word docs and PDFs in each of these tools as well, but you might just have better integration with something that's made for it.
Well, I'll give you an example. The difference between Copilot and, say, for example, Claude, my understanding is from within a Word doc, I can click on inside the Word doc, not even a button, but inside the text, actually, I can say, rewrite this paragraph, and it will do that inside the Word doc. It's kind of nice.
Oh, that's a really great tip, especially for anyone that might be a student right now. Make sure if you're in Word, try and see if you can incorporate Copilot into helping you edit and
Yeah.
iterate.
I
Thank
think
you
there are
for
ways to
letting
do
me know.
that with other tools as well, with plugins and connectors, but natively inside of your Microsoft Productivity Suite, the Copilot has tight integration.
As you mentioned, then I can talk a bit about Goblin tools, and I included this because, as I mentioned, I have a bit of trouble with some executive dysfunction, and I like to be able to break my big tasks into smaller, more manageable pieces. And This tool, if you go to it, it has a bunch of different boxes that you can choose from that help you break down different types of tasks in different ways so you can kind of customize it for yourself very quickly. So I just wanted to include it so people who haven't heard of it might go ahead, give it a look, see if it might help them with being able to make things more palatable, break it down, and just make it easier for you to get through things a little bit quicker. And then Notebook LM. Any thoughts on that, Chris?
I don't use it. So we could use that something you could talk to?
If you have a free account on any one of these, you can't do something called projects. And so Notebook LM allows you to kind of clump things together and create projects for yourself. So let's say you are wanting to have a plan to lose weight, eat better, go to sleep, and drink more water. You can actually basically have a notebook, AI, just for that, that can help you manage all of your prompts, your tasks, and tracking to make it easier for you. Or if you're trying to apply for a job, you can have a notebook just helping you navigate that. So it's this really great organizer for all of these different projects that you might use AI for. So we've talked a bit about these general tools that best way to use them, who they might be working for, and now I'd like to talk a bit about accessibility, specific tools that help people achieve more by using them to do more. Let's see. So I'm wondering, Chris, if you can talk a bit about how the iPhone and Android are tools that are already in your pocket that have AI built in to support yourself.
Sure. So both ecosystems, Apple and Google's device ecosystems have accessibility capabilities built in. I know that Apple just recently announced its ability to use AirPods, for example, for hearing aids, or not technically hearing aids, but um, aids to hearing, I guess you'd say. But right, so they can pick up and amplify background noise using the microphone on the iPhone and piping it into your AirPods. So cool stuff like that. They have tools around speech recognition, vision enhancement, hearing assistance, and motor access. The tools that Android has are for vision, hearing, and everyday tasks. And you can see actually both best for match between those two ecosystems. They obviously compete on a regular basis, offer a lot of the same uh, features and functionality. I'll talk to Otter AI then as well, Martha, and the other three I'll leave to you to comment on because you probably have more experience with them. Otter AI is a software as a service that you can add to webinars, web meetings, conferences, phone calls, etc., for transcription services for hearing impaired or note taking, transcription, meeting summarization, action items, etc. You'll see, I'm sure, a lot of times when you join a Zoom or a Teams meeting, participant that's a Otter AI or something similar, which is often described as note taking assistance, but it provides accessibility services as well for hearing impaired and other communities.
For seeing AI, I find it to be really great for reading text, identifying objects. So my mom really loves seeing AI because she has vision issues. And what she does, like let's say we're out at a restaurant and she can't see the menu because the lights are dim and the writing's small. She'll take a picture of it and it'll read it out loud for her. Or she's in the
Awesome.
grocery store and she needs to make sure that the nutrition facts match up with her dietary needs. She'll take a picture of the back of it and it'll read it out loud to her, what's in it, so she can make decisions for herself. I highly recommend that as a tool if you're interested in checking that out. The other one is Ava, is great for people that are having group conversations, group meetings. It helps transcription and breaking it down by person, so it's easier to follow. And then the big one that actually just came to me from my boss is something called Voice It, a really, really interesting tool that helps with translation for people that may not have traditional language skills or may have slurring in their voice. It helps create clarity and communication as an opportunity. So go check that out. Highly interesting, really cool, might be helpful to some of you on this call today. So we've talked a bit about AI, what it can be used for, what it does, how it works. And now I'd like to talk a bit about how it can help someone on this call with their job search. I'm wondering if you can talk to me a bit about ways to use AI to help find a job.
Sure. Sure. So you have four categories there on the slide. I think I'll talk about them in clockwise rotation. So explore, this would be obviously pre-application phase. What are my interests? How do they align with job opportunities? What are my skills? Are those appropriate skills for job opportunities? And researching of targets that you want, companies that you would like to send your information to, a resume to, job application to, et cetera. So great on the front end or top of funnel, oftentimes, right? With the bottom of the funnel being I've got these three jobs I've interviewed for. Top of funnel being here's my research phase. Here's how I learn about job opportunities. What am I good fit for, et cetera, et cetera. And then in the middle of the funnel, we'll talk about preparing materials, right? So moving to the next tile, building out your resume, building out your cover letters, letters of interest, reference guides, et cetera, sheets for your references, et cetera, et cetera. You can tailor your output from generative AI to the particular job that you're applying for. So you might want to accentuate certain aspects of your experience, of your personal skills for one job and de-accentuate them for another job and accentuate others, right? So you want to tailor, excuse me, your materials based on the job you're applying for. Stay on track. So create a plan to search for your job. How are you going to apply? How many are you going to apply for? How many do you expect to get interviews for? Setting up reminders, follow-up tasks, setting up questions that you want to ask the prospective employers. Socializing that with your AI bot would be a great usage. And then lastly, practice, rehearse your interviews, get feedback on your interview capabilities, and develop your skills in AI to be more relevant in today's job market.
That was great, Chris. Thank you. And just to put in a little plug, we're very excited about the next couple of workshops that we have for Project Level Up. We're going to talk about resume building and interviewing and ways that you can do it quicker, faster, and easier, including tools to use AI to help you with all of these. So we'll share information about that
Awesome.
coming soon. So keep an eye out for that. I'm wondering if you could talk a bit about the future of work.
Sure. So a lot of people are concerned, obviously, with job security in an information age, right? And I think that's been a concern for quite a while now, with multiple inflection points when we change from one technology to another. But what I think is important is just to remember here's where it does a good job, here's where humans are still needed, and what is the intersection of both of those things, right? AI should be used as a productivity aid, not a replacement to the productivity of a worker, right? So force multiplier, making you and every other worker more productive will increase your employer's output, revenue, whatever kind of employment and situation you're in with it, whatever kind of organization you're in. But again, remember, AI is good at summarizing information or is organizing your tasks, drafting emails and documents, finding patterns in data sets, spreadsheets, databases, Word docs, Google Docs, etc. It does a good job of translating, explaining information, synthesizing information, summarizing, and creating task lists from it. And then, of course, repetitive work, doing things that take a human being doing over and over again. Code and computers and robots are very good at. What it can't replace, your creativity as a human being. It can't tell jokes, as an example, or if it does, it tells poor jokes that nobody laughs at. It can't create a human connection, right? You still need friends. You still need human interaction. We all do. It's good for our souls. Teamwork, while it strives to be your teammate, there's nothing like having a team of human beings working together towards a common objective. And you have to use your good judgment. It doesn't have good judgment. It doesn't have any judgment. It have what it was programmed to do. So rather than rely on someone else's ethics and morals, rely upon your own and drawing back on that uh-oh feeling. If you ever get the uh-oh feeling, stop it, tell it so, and redirect it or use a different tool. It doesn't have authenticity. It is synthesizing and generating everything it does based on the work product of others. It's not its own creative tool. It's uh, taking from all of us human beings and our collective experience to draw upon that expertise and provide you with additional productivity. It is not a substitute for the actual origination of the idea. And then it doesn't have, as I mentioned before, it doesn't have a lived experience. Only human beings have lived experiences. Well, of course, and animals. All animals have lived experience. The relevant ones to our conversation are human ones. But it doesn't have that to draw upon. It doesn't have wisdom. It doesn't have courage, right? Where I think human beings have those things and can bring it to bear in whatever context we're talking about.
Chris, that was so beautiful. Sorry, I just really love that.
Thank you.
Really just grounding in the fact that it is a tool that is there to help you and will never replace your beauty, originality, authenticity, and creativity. Uh, there is only one you, and you cannot be replaced. I
It's a
really love that
hammer.
idea.
It's
It's
just
a
like a
hammer.
hammer. We don't fall in love with hammers. We don't make friendships with hammers.
Yeah.
Same principle should apply to this kind of technology.
I love that. Think of it as your hammer in your toolkit. Oh, so good. Chris, you're so good. All right. So we've covered a lot of information. I'd love to take a second just to dive into some questions and answers, a little bit of Q&A. All right. Here's one. Chris, what's your favorite AI tool right now besides Claude?
Besides Claude,
Besides Claude.
um, Gemini, I would say Gemini. Gemini was the first tool I used because we were a Google shop at the time for my company, and I used it a lot. I used a little bit of ChatGPT's image generators, trying to work with it to generate brand identity, PowerPoint templates and stuff like that. But I have to say, other than Claude, I can't really say that. Claude is my favorite, and it is what I use in almost every aspect of my day-to-day job. So, yeah. Uh, so other than Claude, Gemini.
All right, thank you. Here's another one. I'm new to AI and not very tech savvy. What's a good first step to learning how to use AI?
I would say learn good prompting. I think that's the most important aspect of AI. Understand, the clear method that Martha talked about. I think that that's a great model to use. But yeah, good prompting. There are whole college courses now out there in the universe on AI prompting. So it is a skill. It is a skill that humans have to develop to work better with the computers and AI, generative AI. So that's I guess what I would say is the most important skill that you need to understand how to do when using AI.
So thank you. And then what are some AI prompts that you have used to make your life easier?
Oh wow. Well, I'll talk about a Claude example, and then maybe a more general example. I mentioned it before, the skill generation. Our organization has a enterprise account on Claude, and so multiple members of my team are in our Claude enterprise account. And when I generated those skills, the brand identity skills, the PowerPoint, Word doc, and other skills, I'm able to share those skills across our organization and at any time modify and reshare those skills. So, for example, if someone notices that the brand guideline skill has the wrong color, we can correct it, and then it will be corrected for any future work product generation. And I think that to me is what makes Claude stand out from the rest of them as far as how we use it in our business. But for example, image generation, Claude's not great at image generation. So if you want image generation, look for other tools that are out there. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think that was great. Are there any prompts that you use to have made your daily life easier outside of work?
Well, I think I mentioned this before. I will in my initial prompt, I will give a very clear prompt, but I will also use ordered lists of things I want it to do. I want it to generate first this, I want it to then generate that, and I'll do multiple generations in the same prompt, right, to get kind of efficiency. If I need a Word doc and a PowerPoint presentation, for example, I'll tell it to do both at the same time if it's based on the same subject matter. And then when I get the initial response, to reprompt it with my notes, I'll also use ordered lists. Change this, change that, move that, delete this slide, change your tone, et cetera, et cetera. Also, we drawing upon that brand guideline skill, I've used a rebrand prompt a lot where we might have old material that I wanted to apply the new brand guidelines to. I basically call that skill, upload the document I want it to rebrand, and my simple prompt is rebrand. And so it knows from the skill and the document I've uploaded what to do and how to generate the response. So those are some of my favorites.
That's great. And I can jump in as well for this. I've actually used it to help decorate a room to make it more accessible for my daughter. She has ASD, and so making sure that I've taken things into consideration because you don't know what you don't know. It really helped making sure that I had certain things in certain places, zoned rooms for her. And then I used her to help me readjust everything. So it helped me build something, and then she helped me finesse it to meet her needs better. So that was a really big one. And for work, I actually, before I got this job, I really struggled with interviewing. I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm not the best at putting them together in a clear way. And so being able to have a place to practice, record myself speaking and getting some feedback in a way that felt a little bit safe because sometimes talking in front of other people can be a bit hard. So being able to be in a room by myself with AI, giving me some tips to be better, using that in the real world, and then taking the feedback from others to help build that even more was super helpful. One question here is, what are some of the downsides of AI?
Well, environmental impact, I think, is first and foremost and close to my heart, right? It's power hungry, it's water hungry, it's real estate hungry, and it's hardware hungry. So it's driving up prices of CPUs, computers, networking components, and so on and so forth. And they're building lots of data centers and along that power generation. So we have to be mindful as a society, I think, of the impacts of this technology long term and demand from the manufacturers of the software and the hardware that they continually drive to be more efficient in terms of usage of our precious resources like water and power.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Chris. And last question. What would happen if I accidentally shared personal information?
Well, as we've talked about, there are ways to protect yourself from protect your data from being shared or folded back into the model for training purposes. But I think the drawback of not properly securing your tool from using your prompts and results in its training can result in the model knowing too much about you personally or your family or your business or your you just knowing your personally identifiable information is a little, especially without those protections, risky. What that can result in is taking what should be proprietary or private information and sharing it with the world, right? To draw upon Martha's example of, you're just assume that, especially in a free public AI setting, if you're sharing personally identifiable information, personal medical records, banking information, that stuff can leak out. So just know that you should protect those things and only share with an AI model if all the security and privacy protections are turned all the way up. Even then, I would I would question it. So I guess a practical example of that would be I shared my private health information and it uses it as my situation as an example to respond to other prompters and other settings. Not a good situation.
Are there any guardrails that people can put up for themselves to make sure that doesn't happen accidentally?
Yeah, I was just to say that primarily know the security and privacy settings of the tool you're using. If you don't know them, assume they're not there and don't share anything private. If you pay for the tool, you should have some expectation of privacy and security, but also then review their privacy and security documents to make sure that they don't sneak in their language that says they can use your prompts and results to train their model. You want to turn all that off or ensure that it's in their security and privacy agreements with you before you begin to share any of that private information. I sound like I'm repeating myself, but it's important to know the security and privacy regime under which the tool that you're using abides by.
You could even try putting in the language that they have into AI and asking it to summarize in plain language, so it's easier to make sure you're not going to miss anything that could be compromising.
You could always ask it, right? If you're using a generative AI tool, what is my expectation? What is my reasonable expectation of privacy and security as I'm using your tool?
Mhm.
And it should honestly answer. And if it doesn't, then run away.
And one last question here. How can generative AI improve my job search?
Well, I think we've talked a little bit about this in previous slides, but essentially taking you through the journey from the beginning to the end. So starting with assessing your skills, assessing what job opportunities are in the market that match your skills, identifying your strategy to approach target lists of companies or organizations that you want to apply to, all can be done on the front end, right, using AI. And then once you actually start to submit applications and resumes, can help you with practicing for and coming up with questions for interviews that you might be lucky enough to get. And then lastly, I suppose, well, maybe in between there, generating your resume, generating your tailored resume for the particular job you're applying for. So um, researching the jobs, your skills, the appropriateness of the skills on the front end, generating resumes and letters of interest or introductory letters when you're preparing to apply, and then preparing for the interviews with questions, practice interviews, and so on and so forth as part of the whole journey, stop to start.
That's awesome. Thank you. And we'll have some tools and resources for that on the Project Level Up resources page. We'll send you those links after this workshop as well. So keep an eye out for those. Very excited to share them, some good stuff. All right, so that does it for our question and answer portion. As we're wrapping up, I'd love to just take a moment to talk a bit about what we learned today. We learned what AI is, where AI can help, gave you some tips to use AI safely, provided some accessible AI tools to give a try to, and then showed you how to write clear prompts. We hope that stuff resonated with you. And as we wrap up, I'd love to just take a moment, Chris, and ask you if you wanted people to remember one thing from this workshop, what would it be?
The one thing, huh?
One thing.
The one thing I think the most important, we've touched on this, is learn good prompting because that will give you the best results. And so I guess prompting is the most important thing. So take away and always develop your prompting skills to the point where you can use them as a skill that you talk about when you're applying for jobs.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you, Chris, for being here. Thank you to the ASL interpreter for their hard work. Thank you for participants who have joined us here today. We're so happy to have shared space with you, spend time, and we hope that you were able to take something away from this. And thank you for leveling up. Please visit abilitycentral.org/project level up for more information. You can add a /resources to go directly to the resource page, and there's also a QR code you can scan to take you there directly. We'll have all these resources, including how to write good prompts, up there at the ready for you. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.